Okay, welcome to the March 1st Board of Education meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order with roll call, please.
Ken,
Here.
Mullen,
Here.
Noggle,
Here.
here. Winters.
Here, please join me with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States
of America
and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, it looks like we're gonna head right into the nuts and bolts.
So I think that we'll just start with, Mr. Roeder, who, I asked to do a short presentation of Virtual Academy and an overview. So Mr. Roeder, if you don't mind, we'll just go through your presentation.
All right, so this year was a little bit different than in past years. Past years, our population has primarily been secondary kids, whereas this year now we've added that elementary and pre-K component. And what that looks like is quite a bit different than what our 6 through 12 kids currently see. Okay, so currently these are our numbers about 7 days ago, sitting at 1,070 kids total. K through 5, 228 kids, 6 through 12, 811, with 25 pre-K students. You see the breakdown. I mean, it's still quite a few kids as far as movement goes back to the sites versus coming. If we send one kid back to school at their site, we get one in return. It stayed pretty consistent all year long. Back in October, I was at 1,057. And as you can see, we're still hanging in there about 1,070. Our highest point in enrollment was a little over 1,100 students in virtual for the year. So currently our pre-K, Mrs. Sanders at the ECEC is running pre-K. She uses Khan Academy Kids. She's taken a lot of her in-class assignments, converted them over, put them on Google Classroom. She schedules times with her families that want to take advantage of that. They bring them into her classroom when she's there, and they have some small group time with her and the student, or with her and a couple students. So they're still getting a little bit of that socialization for the families that really still want that option. K through 5, we have 2 teachers, elementary teachers. They split the load into K through 2 and grades 3 through 5. At the beginning of the year, we were looking at about 170 to 180 kids in those 2 ranges at their highest point. And then a lot of those have, quite a few of those have returned. We have 2 tutors in the lab that work on Monday evenings to help the kids and their families who need that tutoring but can't get to the lab during the day. So like tonight, they had a whole family of about 5 kids come in, and they stayed the entire time and worked on getting caught up and worked on getting questions answered. Those 2 teachers are using district adopted resources. So they're building the entire curriculum just as they would in a classroom. They're using IXL, they're using ExactPath, Study Island. They're using Get Epic, which is something that we have access to this year that they've given to all teachers. So the kids can read as many books as they want. When they're at home, they just log in, and the teachers have used that to do like novel studies, similar to what Ms. Phillips did when she was in the classroom. She's built novel studies that they do together. They're currently going through Old Yeller. Teacher Made, which is a way for her to take a lot of her worksheets, things that she needs them to answer. She makes them digital. They're able to type their answers in. They're able to drag and drop. They can really interact with the curriculum, and she can see it on her screen for the kids that she's meeting with one-on-one or in a small group. She's doing regularly scheduled Google Meets. They meet with all of their kids twice a week. Monday, they introduce all of the material. They teach their small lessons, things they need to go over. Then they've also recorded videos that they put in Google Classroom. So the kids can watch those and then actually do the assignments that are on IXL and those things that, similar to what they would see in the classroom, but they're working it out online. They also are doing in-person tutoring at the virtual lab, and parents are bringing them in. They have, Ms. Blaylock has some kids that she schedules 3 times a week. They bring the kids in for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And so the kids will be there for about an hour at that point, because they'll go over and meet with our intervention teachers. Then they'll come over and meet with Ms. Blaylock. So similar to what they would see at an elementary site. They got the teacher time and the intervention time in reading. 6 through 12, we have 1 full-time English SPED teacher and then myself there during the day. I handle all the math, science, pretty much most of the electives. Ms. Yateman handles all the English, and she's working with our SPED kids. We have 7 tutors and 2 teachers from Charles Page that have their 7th hour as virtual, where they're monitoring our seniors, making sure those seniors get their courses done. With our 6 through 12 kids, we now have access to 2 different courseware providers. So we use Edgenuity and Edmentum. That gives us a little over 300 courses that we can offer students. Pretty much just about any career field they could find that they think they may want to do. We have courses that can get them introduced to that area. We have ag courses. We have computer science courses. We have business courses. Pretty much anything out there that we need to find whatever their career interest is, we can find it and put them in that course and give them a taste. We have an intro to marine biology course that a lot of the middle school kids have taken. So having 2 different courseware, it's just opened up a lot of options for the kids. So they're not stuck in just plain electives, let's do health and things like that. The electives they're choosing can and are meaningful to them.
Is that the program that we partnered with Tulsa Tech to get?
Edgenuity is what we get from that partnership, and Edmentum comes with our agreement for Study Island that we use K through 12. And then our program is NCAA approved, so our athletes can take virtual classes. We follow the rules that the NCAA sets, and so all of our courses are NCAA approved for our core classes. So our athletes, it's come in handy. We have a lot of the athletes, basketball, baseball players this year who moved to virtual second semester. They, to avoid the possibility of the quarantine and missing games, because a lot of them missed second semester last year and didn't get to play baseball. And they said, this is a good option. And so that NCAA approval was huge for them. So where do we go from here? Our big thing is, or my big thing is, we start looking at our K through 5 program. To me, is amazing. I mean, the kids love seeing their teachers. The teachers are able to build those relationships. So the next step is, let's start taking that idea, expand it into 6 through 12 as another option. Live instruction classes for the core subject specifically, and then start for the kids who decide to stick with what we've been doing, increase their Google Meet participation. We go live every morning about 8:30 in the morning with a Google Meet. It stays on all day long. Ms. Yateman's on there. I'm on there. I'll jump in and out depending on what meetings I have going on. But if they need help, the kids are free. They just jump on, ask their question. If they're having a technology issue, they get on, they can take their phone, they can show us what the computer's doing. We can fix that issue. They can get off. Anything anything that pops up, if they have questions about it, it's basically having the teacher right there in their living room anytime they need it. Additional opportunities to do a blended schedule. Our blended kids do amazing, and that keeps them connected with Clyde Boyd. It keeps them connected with Charles Page High School, Tulsa Tech, TCC. All those options just create opportunity. So they really can, and a lot of the things we hear from our blended kids is that when they go to college after doing a blended schedule, they come back and say they were more prepared for the situations they faced because they had to learn time management. They had to learn how the self-discipline to make themselves work. That it really just opened up some avenues that they didn't realize they were missing before, but it really did prepare them for what was next in life. We're going to continue to look for things that we can offer that maybe the statewide virtual programs can't. How teacher availability is a huge piece, because of so many times we get kids that are saying, I had to call a 1-800 number to get help. We don't want our kids to have to call a 1-800 number. We want to give them certified teachers in front of them through Google Meet so that they can jump on there and get the help they need, just like in a regular classroom. Lab accessibility, try to get more kids to the lab. How can we take kids who think they can't get to the lab, get them to the lab one day a week so that they can see us. We can see them. We can work with them on different things. But continue to maintain that flexibility. That's been the beautiful thing of virtual, is it gave us a ton of flexibility with schedules. It gives the kids a ton of flexibility with having jobs and working with their families. So that flexibility and being able to do the things that are important, and yet at the same time still maintain that personal balance that you want. I mean, it's that flexibility to me is key. Student accountability, we're always looking at how can we hold kids even more accountable than we are. That's the thing with virtual, that when you talk to people, they always ask me, when I have schools from other school districts call, that's what they ask. How do you hold them accountable? How can you make sure that they're logging in? How can you make them do this? How can you and it all goes back to, it's still relationships and communication. So anything we can do to communicate with parents, communicate with students, build those relationships so that they feel comfortable coming to us in a situation where they may have never seen us, except they've seen our name. And so at times it's really hard to, create that experience in a classroom that's really easy. You're there every day, you see them, you interact with them. So we try to build, have more accountability. You kind of really have to work even more at building those relationships. Create an in-person experience delivered via virtual format, allows students to take advantage of the benefits that both types of programs provide. I mean, to me, in long term, I love virtual. I believe in it. I think it could be an amazing experience. And I think the more we can take what we do at a school site and figure out how to blend that into a virtual format, we can really start to change what people see and what people envision in a virtual education. It doesn't have to be standing in front of a lab or sitting in front of a computer watching videos all day. It can be, everybody, let's go on a field trip, and we live stream the field trip for the kids that can't make it. We schedule field trips and everybody comes and we go together. We meet up at places, different things like that. So, have an open mind to put yourself out there and think outside the box from what we see every day and what we hear about all the time. Questions, comments, anything?
There's 1,070 students that say it brings out of 5,000, so over 20% of our kids are getting some blended or full-time. That seems like a lot.
It is.
That, yeah.
It's quite a bit. I mean, everybody has seen an increase due to COVID, and that's we've seen a big increase in full-time virtual, primarily, and especially at the elementary level due to that. But we've also seen an increase in the number of kids who are taking advantage of the blended option.
What were our numbers pre-COVID?
Last year, we maxed out at almost 400.
A little under half. So then the numbers on the survey kind of hold true to what we would expect. Maybe, I mean, only 1,600 responses, but that's probably a good cross section.
Right.
8% now are going to say, we're going to stick with this.
That's what we're thinking. I mean, it's hard to predict, but that's why that pre-enrollment survey, parent survey is so important. We think that we're going to be probably back to maybe where we were at. I don't think though, that we can discount what we've learned this year, because what Jay was describing as a model for delivering instruction, I mean, we've been in this place where we're training our teachers to do distance learning in a way that's meaningful. And so his folks are, it's a must because that's a quote unquote requirement of virtual academy. But at the same time, we're applying those skill sets to our teachers that are at brick and mortar. So, I mean, I think it's a win-win. But yeah, and we would expect once post-COVID happens, those kids will come back. That's what we're predicting. And so we're just kind of wrapping our minds around how to prepare for that. And then at the same time, be able to keep honing our skill sets so that we can do exactly what he's talking about. And I think we've become better people, better teachers, better educators for it. You have to look at that opportunity. I said that at the very beginning. Is this an obstacle, or can we look at it as an opportunity? And I think that we've taken a hold of that. And it's been a year. And I'll just leave it with that. So
Yep.
yeah.
No, the whole idea of necessity, the mother of invention, and we had to do it, but I think it obviously has made us better at doing it, and hopefully leads to growth is my hope.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see, if anything increases, I think a lot of kids are gonna go return to school, but I think 9 through 12 definitely, because of the transportation piece, we'll see an increase in blended kids from where we were. And I think this year has proven that middle school can do blended, and they can do it pretty well. So we have room to grow there. And I think families will start to take advantage of that option a little more.
I will say, I ran into a parent of a baseball player coming out of the complex earlier this spring. I say spring, is it spring yet? Anyway, she approached me and they had gone virtual pre-baseball season as a product of I want to make sure I can play with versus quarantine, which is fine. But she approached and said, "Thank you so much. This is not what I thought it would be, and it's been really great for my students." I think kids that are more mature and they're willing to plug in and do the work find that versatility of schedule allows me to do some things that I couldn't do if I was captured, from 8 to 3:30 every day. So, I mean, I just think it allows some individualization that we didn't think about before. So I'm proud of where we've come since day one. I think statewide, maybe nationwide, we were all in this kind of rush to figure all of that out. And maybe we had a head start, which is great, but I think we've done great. Jay's been amazing at making the academy run well.
Thank you.
I would be curious on just the marketing side of that, about people understanding the difference between what they maybe have experienced in distance learning versus virtual academy, and how we could really communicate that well. Just because, some have had a good experience distance learning, some have not, but our virtual academy seems like there's a good experience all the way through. And so, and we're more equipped for it. So
Absolutely. But what's interesting about that comment is that what Jay's describing as meshing what we would typically do through the Google Classroom platform in school, utilizing that in a way alongside Edgenuity, but really come in full terms with offering maybe that distance learning model more robustly as a virtual option with live teacher. So I feel like we did a really good job explaining it from the get-go in terms of how we were perceiving it to be. So our job now is to think about how that can work and describe it as maybe an option going forward as part of our virtual academy that includes live virtual instruction and live inside the lab as well. So good stuff.
I like the way that we have done it too, because let's assume next year COVID's over with and we don't have 1,070 students, but we've got that 4,500 kids. We can flex back with our resources to accommodate both what we need at the virtual academy and at the school. By putting those resources can move back and forth to where they're needed most.
Absolutely. And if you think about what we've done with our internship program, Mr. Trout can speak to that probably better than I can. But when we talk about needing some flexibility in scheduling to accommodate some of the internships that our kids are now able to get And that's just another layer that we knew we were doing that last year pre-COVID. So really going into that piece robustly and trying to figure out the individualization part of it. So
I think it's a huge recognition that one shoe doesn't fit all sizes.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we have to keep in mind. I think it's.
I want to go what Rusty said too. I appreciate that. This is a wonderful program. How do we not sell it?
what kind of,
We're kind of doing that.
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
selling that, so.
I think that here's my opinion, take it or leave it. Going into this year, there was a lot of unknowns and people had a lot of uncertainty about what that could look like. And so now that we have a year under our belt by being, the mother of invention, however you want to term that, people are a little bit more comfortable with it. Across the state, we saw mad exodus for homeschool and virtual school that they thought had it together. But I think we're getting to a place where it's becoming more commonplace. It's not atypical, which I think it was to begin with when we started this school year. I don't know if you'd want to add anything, Sean, to that.
I think you said almost, I think you said quite a bit, but as far as reflection over the past year, I mean, we've made incremental steps in the past 10 years in this program to make it better every year, but I think Jay has learned a lot over the last year and he's applied a lot in terms of skill set and just being just a little bit of ingenuity when it comes to providing a digital platform, and it's benefited our kids quite a bit. And he's continuing to come up with new ideas to put us out front. So he's doing a great job.
I was in a consortium this morning. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can share this. So I was in a consortium this morning and as kind of handing that baton over to Carrie Schlehuber for enrollment, but I was in there because we're kind of making that shift. And, like Broken Arrow's in there, Midland City, Dell City, some of those larger districts. And it was really interesting because we were talking about trying to get ready for next year and what are students going to do and about how our enrollment process was going to be set up, where if it was blended, and how we're also doing the checks and balances this year through counselors or whatever. It's not that we're going to say absolutely you can't do virtual, but for kids that have had a rough time, to be able to counsel with the parents, what that looks like to take that next step for them. But the huge part on that was every one of them said, we learned so many things not to do and so many things that would make it better. So they're at that too. But a lot of those people that were in there were like, yeah, we called your district. Yeah, we called your district. So a lot of those people did reach out because we've had that platform in place for a while. So it's just it expanded so quickly that, that's what made it difficult for us. But I'm telling you that a lot of those places were calling us going, now, how did you do this? What did this look like?
What's funny about that is I was thinking back, first of all, it's been a solid year. And when we started this, Jay and I were presenting at OSIG and COSEP. We were doing those presentations. It's just this current school year for people that were really struggling trying to figure it out. And we would get calls specifically, I'll name the district, but a really outstanding superintendent, and he's new to this district. And he said, we're just getting started. So how do we go about, how did you start that out? And it's not an easy answer. I mean, Sean's right when he says 9 years ago, we started this program. So it's not like you can just jumpstart and hop into it. So I love that we've become a resource for people.
If I could add something just to piggyback on the number that got me excited when I looked at that was the roughly 900 students who are full-time virtual grades, or what was it? It was.
Pre-K through.
Okay, no, the 290, right at 300 students, 9 through 12. That's roughly 75 per class. When you add those to the number of students who are in brick and mortar Charles Page High School, plus the Page Academy kids, we're back up to our 400 per class. So we haven't shrunk the way that other school districts have shrunk. Our neighbor to the south, I mean, they dropped from 6A to 5A because they've lost so many students, have bled so many students. So Jay, and the way that he's marketed this program, the way we as a district have marketed this, we've done that, Mike. We've sold it so that we're not losing students in COVID the way that other school districts are. I'm really proud of that.
That is true.
Big deal.
So you look at those 290 kids that are 9 through 12, what does that correlate to if all of those came back to class? What is that? Probably
We'd be full again.
3 or 4 kids per class?
Yeah, it would, and I think that that's what our teachers are saying. I think that we're looking across the board, probably an average of about 5 students fewer per class this year.
Yeah.
It's not enough to reduce staffing, and we still have to have all of our teachers. When we get them all back, we'll be filled to the gills, which is where we like to be.
The interesting, that's a great point. And I was talking to Dustin tomorrow at our TOY reception. Congratulations out loud. Publicly to Dustin tomorrow as our district teacher of the year, but he, remember the reason we started plowing into that virtual component here anyway was to reduce class size because of COVID. And Dustin made the comment, it has been a really nice compliment this year via parent choice of choosing what platform they wanted their students to do. Because just by nature of those numbers, our high school classroom sizes, he said, I've got classes, we do seating charts, and I can say in many of them, there's no need to quarantine because we're able to space. So, I mean, you think about all of those cogs working together, it's an interesting place that we've been. So I think they're going to be back. Rusty, we're at 93%, I think. There's another few hundred that came in from the parent survey. So you're talking about cutting that number in half, basically.
Well, I think personally, I mean, it's a win-win for everything when you're looking at teacher to student ratios and you're getting more one-on-one instruction when you have less people in the class. But the virtual itself can be one-on-one instruction.
Right.
Because that person can just call up Mr. Rodert or whoever's on there and say, I need help. That's one-on-one.
Right.
That's not having to wait for the teacher to come around to you and
Absolutely.
and you're wasting all that time when you have a question, now you're getting more one-on-one time, so.
And it's still our Sand Springs teachers. It's not a
Sure.
call center worth of teachers hanging out in Florida that knows nothing about our kids, our families, or our demographic.
And they're certified.
And there's that's all. So any other questions for Mr. Roeder, which really kind of ends the, good job, Jay. Thank you.
Very nice.
Ends the instructional component to this. Again, I just want to mention that parent survey, we're going to be pushing that really hard. We'll get to the communication part and talk about dialogue. That's been, in my opinion, very successful, especially compared to how we used to do dialogue here in this building. So if you all are ready, we'll shift to finance and facilities. I'll start with finance. If you have followed the resources that I give you, I still continue to think Vernon Florence is one of the better experts in the state of Oklahoma regarding school finance. You will hear that the State Board of Equalization certified a budget which yields itself to us being flat for next year. I hesitate to celebrate, although I would rather see flat versus lower. But if you'll remember, our state aid from last year compared to this year, we were in about $1 million deficit from a year-to-year comparison. So while I'm thankful that they're projecting that we won't go lower, I'm still here to say that to put back into where we were at pre-COVID, we would need more money in the formula. So I'm going to leave it at that and not go super political, but there are some bills out there that just be aware of your OSSBA emails that you're getting as we continue into the legislative session. With that said, I will tell you, I also am very proud of the way we have stayed fiscally sound. We plan for it. We make great decisions, in my opinion. Greg does a great job keeping me abreast on literally month by month real-time expenditures and revenue, which is really helpful, especially in a day and age when we have to watch our pennies and our nickels. And so we have nothing to worry about. I'm sitting here in my mind thinking, I want to hire the Chinese teacher that we just interviewed. Stan interviewed, gosh, what seems like forever ago, probably 3 weeks ago. We're probably going to make that recommendation, just so you know. It's a something additional, but adding Chinese as a foreign language is a coup for us. And so there's still some strategies that I think, regardless of what's happening, we have to make some decisions about how to best spend our money, and that's one that can be really positive. So those are sound instructional and financial decisions that we're making in order to put our money where our mouth, get the best bang for our buck. And so you're likely going to see that on a board agenda coming soon. So we spend a lot of time in big discussions about what makes us better. And so we're able to do that because we do have that fiscal stability. So I want you to know that up front, that there's really nothing that you have to worry about financially for us. The bigger conversation is really about roofs, which we're getting ready to bid out for the hail damage that happened last spring. And then, of course, the most current tragedy is the water breaks. And so let me just kind of paint a picture of where we've been. It dawned on me today, actually, that since we had COVID, so COVID started about a year ago. Well, it did, a year ago, March, spring break. In that 1 year time, we had 2 devastating natural occurrences that happened within a year. That's unheard of, you guys. So we have a major insurance claim for hail damage to our roofs, and Jeannie's going to give you a brief about that tonight. And then we have yet another major insurance claim regarding 2 of our facilities, Angus Valley and the Early Childhood Education Center. I shared a file with you last week. We keep dropping pictures in it. So if you, just for FYI, you could keep looking at that folder. And so I'm trying to take pictures as we go so you can see the progress. I'm going to let these 2 speak because they'll speak to it better than I will. But I will say the mitigation team that we're using, CCR, I can't say enough about because they flat get it done. I visit Angus and ECEC almost daily. I was there last night. I wanted to choke when I saw Angus and the fact that they were tearing out all the sheetrock, getting rid of all the wet sheetrock, getting ready to prepare to redo that. And I left pretty sick thinking, oh my goodness, how are we going to get this done? I should have known better. I went in today. Arnold and I visited both of those sites today, and it's night and day difference from last night, about 6:37 to this afternoon at 4:30. So it can be done quickly. As you know, we communicated out to our families that it would likely be the week after Monday after spring break, which is the 22nd, that we can open back those sites to in-person instruction. Mostly because I've determined we're going to do it right. So I'll kind of let's do if you don't mind, the site crazy water lake, Jeannie, and then we'll do the roof stick. So I'll let you give just a brief description of the last, what seems like 14 weeks. It's really been fun.
Yeah.
1.5.
Last Wednesday and Thursday were the bad days. Thursday being the worst. We had 4 floods in the size that we had to get CCR out to take care of them. Of course, you know about Angus and ECEC, but we actually also had floods at the administration building and also at Old Central Ninth Grade Center. I stopped counting about how many other breaks we had, but we were able to handle in-house. We didn't have to call out. And that includes a break that Jeff and I had to respond to this weekend to Charles Page. That includes breaks that we found, more breaks that we found this morning at Angus. So we're still finding busted pipes. The good news is that for the most part, they're under our control. In other words, we turn on water, oops, we got a leak, turn it back off. So we think we're out of the woods in terms of the CCR has done an amazing job. We were very fortunate to have a relationship with them because, as you can imagine, the demand for those type of companies this last week, 10 days has been insane. But he prioritized us. He continues to prioritize us. And like Mr. Rick said, they're going to get it done. They're going to get it done right. They are very familiar and very highly regarded by OSIG. OSIG is actually is glad that Larry with CCR is taking care of us because he has a very good reputation.
We've been pushing pretty hard to be back earlier than what we're predicting. ECEC looked like it was in really great shape. I am the last person you want to ask about, do you think? So I'm relying on the experts, including Mike. If we can get back in early, hooray. If we can't, parents have the knowledge that they're going to have to make arrangements prior, in advance, which I think is helpful if I've got to find an alternative, childcare for my child. In the meantime, we're offering distance learning. I know it's not where we want to be by all stretches of the imagination, but we've met several times with, definitely district admin, but specifically Morgan Douglas and Angela Noel to really get the best case scenario. And there's a lot of reasons why we went down the path that we're on. So right now we have 6 classrooms opened up at Pratt with 2-hour increments of time, and kids, each grade level has a classroom, and kids are able to sign up in 2-hour increments to come to get tutoring help. So it's working out well, and we've had really good response from that. I was at Pratt this morning, and they were marching those kids down the hallway to their room, and teachers were ready, and everybody's been very, we started out this year with the word #flexible. This is at its finest, let me just tell you. So it's going as well as to be expected, I believe, for this point in time. I will say this, we're talking through a contingency plan. If by some crazy revelation, we can't get back into the sites on the 22nd, and we're talking about the utilization potentially that old, God forbid, second building, but at least has some space. So I don't think that we'll have to go there, but at the same time, I definitely want plan B. So would you add anything, any questions for Mike? He's been in the big middle of all of it for a while.
The only other thing I'll add is that CCR is not going to let us back in buildings until it's safe, and that's going to include indoor air quality testing.
Right.
So they're very professional.
Do they have an industrial on staff, or is that a third party?
That's an outside third party.
They work for us directly and not for CPR?
He will take care of the scheduling and things like that, and even, but as far as, no, it is a totally, he wants to avoid, what that would look like. So he does get an independent, into an IQ specialist in to take care of that. But it is third party.
So the buildings are vacant now, ECC and Angus?
Except for staff, yes.
The teachers are there?
No.
Oh, but staff, I mean custodial.
Okay, yeah.
So we allowed the teachers to come in yesterday to get their, some of their supplies. That's one of the hard things about transitioning to a different site. You put them in a place where I don't have access to all my stuff, all my materials. And so, there was a report, one teacher thinks they lost a lot of things because there was water. We had not waiters, but we had boots on, and there was water on the floor standing in about 60% of the building. And so we haven't been able to drill down and understand exactly how much loss we have in terms of materials that'll come. We finally get teachers to come back in and really go through their things. I will say this, I had a gentleman call today wanting to make a donation, to a pretty decent donation for his child's teacher to resupply. So when we see kind of what's lost, definitely there's some insurance components as well, but there's also some pretty personal items that teachers bring that they've spent out of their own pocket. And I was very thankful for this person that called today. So we'll know more as we get further into the progress, but I will say there was a lot of progress made over the weekend. So again, any questions you want to direct to Mike, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer any of those.
We feel confident we can have back in after spring break.
That I'm confident. Again, barring any kind of crazy, I'm not going to say that nothing could happen that would cause a wrench in that, but that's the conversation we had Friday with that team.
And also, Mr. Gunn, that's not to say that they won't be 100% finished, but the building will be in such a fashion that they can have school and they can do the remainder of their work after hours on the weekend.
Right. Okay, so let's shift, if y'all are ready to shift to roofs. So Jeannie, you want to talk briefly about?
We're going out to advertisement this week, so toward the end of this week, I'll have the bid package ready. People will be calling me. And we open bids on the 31st of this month, March. And we have a pre-bid meeting set on the 17th of March. We will climb on all of the buildings. This bid is for 7 of the sites in our district. and the metal buildings on those sites, metal roofs on those sites.
Bid package, well, she's not, it's not complete yet. She's still working on that. So
Yes.
when we get
It's
that,
almost, it's real.
we'll shoot out an email to you guys so that you have access to that.
I just have a little bit of problems on Doobie that they don't think that there's any damage, so I need my guys to go up there and look again. So,
Which may be outside of the scope for us.
no, that was in the scope. I just need to make sure that we get,
That was a long time coming, not because Jeannie was not on it, but if you recall, we talked to you about OSIG inspector coming to do the work to assess the damage and sending us a pretty big
it's 95 pages. And they had a drone fly over all the buildings and an engineering group. Mike was with them. And then the young OSIG operator, this was his first big project and evidently he didn't step up to the task. And they let him go. And so no one really knew what was going on. And we had partial improvements that Mike poured hours over trying to figure out where the partials were. And some of them, we really never could figure out what they were talking about.
site identification on the package, which was what the problem was. So they would say, building 3
It
and
was always rough one, and then you would have to, which building is this?
so it took a little time to sort that out. But I'm happy to say that we're on the road to making sure, getting the bid package out and getting on with it. So,
It's not total replacement of 7 buildings.
no, it's not total roof replacement.
No, it's not. No, we could not afford total roof replacement. But we are repairing almost all of the roofs that they recommended replacement, and we're trying to get something in writing that they will allow us to do that. So I don't see that that's an issue because our insurance adjusters already talked OSIG, so I don't see that that's a problem at all.
We have the like kind of roof that's there. It's a built up roof.
It's an elastomeric roof, is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then with the Kynar roof, like the south ticket booth, there's a special coating you have to put on the roofs with the Kynar finish, so.
We will be getting ready to rid of the green roof on the ticket booth. It'll just be match our colors. So that's going to be, you look for those aesthetic improvements as well. So you've got getting the work done so it doesn't leak anymore, obviously, but then you also have to tune into how can we make it a little bit better and improve. So. Meeting. All right, I think that concludes, I will say this. East Wing is set to be clad soon, thank goodness. So when I say that, Charles Page High School, you approved it a few months ago. I think Josh Milburn was a little embarrassed about the kind of time it's taking, so he's looking for completion of that sometime early April. I have a question.
Empower families and communities.
So dialogue, you guys, I took the time this week to do some statistics on the dialogues, because you can actually see views on each of those segments, and we've actually done 10 of them. With an average of 603 views per evening, ranging from 125 to 2,200. So I was just thinking through how little response we get of people in person, whereas online with views, not that they happen that night, but at least people have time to go back and look at it. A lot more participation. So that's, I think, practice that we will be continuing. Typically, we didn't do this last time, but typically we have a Google form ready for open questions that are just live enrolled. So we'll do that again next Thursday. It's going to be all about pre-registration and enrollment. What kind of learning would your child be? Would you be interested in your child for taking in next year? So kind of redescribing what Virtual Academy is about versus in person and all of those things. So we can get a good picture of how to plan for next year. So I'm pretty proud of the response to that. Want to shift to talk of graduation prom, and Mr. Trout agreed to come and talk through what we're thinking in those two events.
You know, just take them in order.
So let's take it if you don't mind. I have some notes. I shared.
I think we're on prom, let's do prom first. We are gonna do a prom. It'll be April 24th, which would have been the date that we normally would have. We're usually 2 weeks out from graduation when we do prom. We don't have a venue, which is okay because we probably wouldn't be able to use that venue with our full crowd anyway. I don't know if you follow the news, but the Oklahoma Jazz Hall of Fame's declared bankruptcy and they're closed down because they don't pay their taxes, and the director was embezzling and a whole other bunch of stuff. So we're gonna do an evening under the stars. We're gonna do it right out here. And we're gonna have a dance floor, we're gonna have pictures, we're going to have a DJ, and we're just gonna do it upright. But it'll be outside so that we can spread out and have fun. We'll have attractions spread out, and we'll do it as much as a traditional prom as we can, given the fact that we can't gather indoors with 400 or 500 kids at once. So preliminary conversations with parents and kids, they're pretty excited about that.
Light Up the Night is the theme, which I love.
Right.
So their team got together and we have a really creative team that constructs, I don't know, just events in an amazing way. So
Since it is gonna be different and it's gonna be somewhat diminished, we're gonna cut the price in half for kids so that they won't have to pay for the full prom experience. And we're gonna try and make it a break even in that regard. So that planning is going forward. On graduation, Ms. Durkee prompted me a couple of weeks ago to email Tony Winter, who's the director of the Navy Center in Tulsa, and ask him what their restrictions were for COVID still, even this year. And their limit is 180 students on the floor at any one time, which means that we would have to do 2 ceremonies. A limit of 6 guests, wasn't that it? 6 guests.
that's right.
So that will dramatically cut into the families that normally come. So I sent out a second survey to our seniors, asking them what their preference would be based upon that information. Graduate here on the stadium, at the stadium, or at the Navy Center in 2 ceremonies, or graduate here all together. And I just looked at it. 317 students have responded, which is pretty much the whole class. Thank you, Jay. He sent it out to all those 75 virtual or so virtual seniors. So I think almost every senior has responded, and 87% are saying they would rather graduate all together here at the stadium. So we're on with you guys' blessing. We'd like to go ahead and plan graduation here at the stadium, but only do 1 ceremony, unlike what we did last year, which still came off pretty well, I thought, other than the fact that it was just dog hot for the second one. But do it here. I think we have a good solid plan of how we can kind of replicate the traditional seating and the 2 blocks with the center aisle and the way that we've always graduated in the past. Probably do the backdrop be this building with the students facing that way, and we can put parents on both sides so that we can really spread out and they can have pretty good view of their kids graduating. So
I would just add, remember the first survey we talked about, students were kind of leaning toward the ORU. What Stan did in the second survey was give the parameters of what the conditions would be. And so with that knowledge, they had a better idea of what that would look like. And I'm looking at the survey right now, there's 76.7 seniors.
you can add that there's 2 zones if you could, because I had to edit, I made a mistake. So
Okay.
it's got 2 different groups that are in the stadium. So if you have the 76 to the 10%, the red and the white,
Gotcha. Yep.
it gives like 87%.
Oh, gotcha. I'm seeing it. Yeah. Thank you. So 87.4% is what's showing. So they all want to be together. If you'll remember last year, we divided it into 3 segments and they got to decide, and I graduated with some, but not others. And it's just better to have the class together. So that's where we're leaning.
What date are we looking at?
May 8th, Saturday, May 8th, which would have been anyway,
Saturday?
Saturday, May 8th.
In the evening like normal, or?
No,
I think so.
I think I would suggest a sunrise graduation.
That may cut into participation with seniors.
When there's no heat.
Right. I looked up the weather today, just out of curiosity. The average temperature on May 8th in Tulsa, Oklahoma is 78 degrees with a 1 in 5 chance of rain. So it's going to be 78 degrees with 20% chance.
Yeah, I wonder this, just, I know, obviously, we won't have quite the expense on graduation as we would have at the maybe center. I would wonder if hiring a professional production company for the sound might be a wise move.
It might be. We can certainly look into that. I don't know. I didn't get any feedback last year, one way or the other, pardon the pun, feedback on the sound, one way or the other last year. From where I was standing and what I was doing, I thought it sounded great. But,
Well, I think facing one side of the stadium is probably one thing, but if you're looking at both, it's fine, just.
yeah, we can certainly look into that. I mean, we spent, I think, what, Ms. Turkey, in past years doing the Maybe Center, it's been 20,000 bucks, right? So I think we spent less than 5,000 last year. The stage rental was the biggest expense we had. So we can probably pull it off for that one.
So we have a lot of good feedback on the stadium graduation, even though it was in 3 parts, it was,
Yeah.
Different. But there was great feedback. People really liked it.
I like
So,
I think we did upright, did a
right.
classy job and.
Yeah.
And have it be something people remember. It's not gonna be
What's-
like.
what's
old
the-
days where it rained all week and it was muddy. We have turf now. That's not an issue.
What's the likelihood that if we get the same date for the following year at the Maybe Center?
We've got constant contact with Maybe Center. They have been very gracious about knowing that it's COVID restrictions. So for the next year, we'll still have that same weekend. They've been super good about working with us.
Yeah, that's what we did last year. I emailed Tony that day and he said, you've got it. We're here for you every year. You've got your dinner.
So
That's a
you-
good
You
thing.
do that, and he jumps on pretty quick. It's like very next day, okay, reserve, just to make sure.
They're good folks over there. They like us.
I think that takes us out of communication. If you guys are ready to move on.
Thank you, Mr. Trout.
Yes, thank you. Health and safety.
Yeah, so health and safety really does have 2 parts to it. One is our nutrition team. I have been ever so proud of our child nutrition people that in the context of crazy scheduling COVID year, they have literally continued to try to do the very best they can to provide nutrition to our students. Even with our Angus kids, it's picked up at Pratt. I think there's a second location that I'm not going to be able to pull in my brain tonight, but they continue to deliver the meals and they work really hard in doing that. The Friday of the snow week, it was a little bit treacherous coming in, there's no doubt, but they opened up Charles Page High School in Clyde Boyd and delivered lunches on that day, and the ladies just came. So committed staff they are, and I love it. I believe I mentioned the $1,500 grant that they received for Clyde Boyd Middle School for equipment last month, but I wanted to include it again tonight. And then the second part of that health safety piece is really about our district safety committee that's headed by JJ Smith. He actually sent a nice summary to me about the kinds of things they talk about. Bullying is a big thing. You'll see on the agenda tonight, there are several policies that we had to revise based on new laws. And so that was on first read last month and we're asking for approval tonight. So that kind of thing is talked through in the committee. And then just a reminder, we have the Stop It app, which allows kids to report anonymously if they see something that, I don't know, I would like to get more uses on that, statistical uses from our kids, just because it is anonymous. And so it's definitely something that's available. By the way, that's paid for by OSIG, so it doesn't cost the district at all, which is nice. The other piece that I want to say publicly is vaccines are Friday. That's okay. We have right at 300. I sent out another email today saying, hey, there's still slots. We have 340 that's clocked to Sand Springs Public Schools. If you've missed the first email or changed your mind, let me know. And since I sent that out, I've had 3 people, I changed my mind. So we're opening it up. It's a big ordeal. We have to provide registration tables and hosts to get people through the system and people to data entry at the state portal for vaccines. So it's a large undertaking. We partnered with Keystone and Berry Hill to provide that service to them as well. So they'll be coming over to Charles Page High School, and we're going to do that in the cafeteria. And the wait for the 15 minutes that people have to be monitored after the vaccine is administered, we'll do in the 9th grade commons area. So just Stan came up honestly with that idea, and it's going to be amazing. So a lot of work, but I think the process will go quickly. So we're slated to deliver up to 450 vaccines at Charles Page High School on Friday. So it's a trick, but we're gonna do it and get it done. And of course, you know that day will be a distance learning day for our students. The other part of that is that's dose 1, so dose 2, it was Moderna, is what I'm being told, will be 4 weeks later as prescribed by that particular vaccine. So that will happen on April the 2nd, barring any kind of mess up.
Also a school day, will that have to be?
There's no way to pull that off. That is a monstrosity. We're using, Kristen, you sat in a meeting with me today, it's taking 40 employees just to get through the minutia of what we've got to provide. So yes, that would be the plan.
Distance learning.
The 450 vaccines that are available to us, we have 600 employees.
Right.
Do we get first choice?
So here's what happened.
The Keystone?
So here's what happened, not because there was an unfair advantage, but we received an email from Total Wellness, which is the company that does our wellness checks for our employees. Anyway, we got the email at the same time. So did our superintendent colleagues from Houston and Berry Hill. As soon as I got mine, I sent mine out pretty quick. So that would have been Friday evening, I believe. And it filled up pretty fast. In fact, today, I'm not sure, but as I talked to our contact at Total Wellness, I'm not sure Keystone and Berry Hill were maybe as quick to send that out. I do know that all of the morning times were taken. So figure half the doses. So we had 225 at least signups before the end of the morning. So I suspect we may or may not use all 450, but it'll be pretty close. Berry Hill was large as well. They had I think 74 folks that they had to sign up for it too. And I'm not sure Keystone, of course, was smaller. So just being a good partner to our colleagues that are close and trying to get that out to as many people that want. Of course, it's definitely optional. You don't have to take it. But again, I think I told you last month in our survey where we asked for interest in the vaccine, we had 60% of our folks that said they wanted it. So we've gotten really good feedback from our teachers. They're pretty excited about, number one, getting it, and secondly, having it convenient. So it's a coup for us, I feel like.
So I know you and I had discussed that Saturday's not an option, especially for this first one. Is there any other options on the second one for 2 days? I know Sapulpa did 2 days and they weren't having to go to distance learning and.
Yeah, Sapulpa's smaller, it's big county. So there's 2 differences. When I asked Rod Grubal as our contact, they're not working on Saturday. He was describing, he said,
So I'm not Saturday, but like maybe 2 days, a Thursday, Friday, or something else.
it's pretty tight. I mean, I'm at their will. I can ask that question, but I'm at their will. They're trying to get it out to all Tulsa area schools and they were commissioned. I can't remember exactly what day they said they wanted them to be done with the first dose, but it was within like mid-March. We're asked to be done with the first dose mid-March. They've really narrowed it in an attempt to get it out. I think our teachers are going to feel a lot more confident and comfortable about being at work in the midst of the pandemic. And I'm hoping sooner than later it kind of curves. And we're already starting to see numbers drop. That is for sure. Hoping it curves it even more. I'm ready to be out of this whole scenario. So I can ask that question. I don't think we'll have much luck, honestly, because I asked before and he said, we're working 8 to 8. I mean, their people are pretty hooked up.
I'm not sure what Sapulpa did when they signed up for theirs. I'm like, we can ask, but because of the way that we're doing it and we're hosting it and like we have our 40 employees that are working it. So it's going to be met in cabinet today and we each kind of have our area. And imagine this, I have the hostess group that are going to walk them down where they need to be. And to make sure that they're getting to the stations, relaying data and whatever. So I was reaching out to my people today, but then I got to thinking about they're every 5 minutes. So let's say that I have 10 people that I'm in charge of that I'm working, and some of them are going to have to go and cover for those that are having vaccinations, but I'm trying to keep confidentiality so they don't, because I can't just say, hey, Wagers needs to go get her shot. Can you cover for her? Because it's obvious, that if she's standing there getting a shot, she's getting one, but I'm trying to remain as confidential as possible. So I have to have people go and do those shifts, then I got to consider lunch. And so all of that. So I'm looking at, most of mine are in the morning because Sand Springs, we got ours out a little earlier. And so, just trying to figure who I have that can cover the bases that I need to for that part, even on that first day as they registered, because otherwise people are just standing around, they don't really know where to go because our people supplying that information.
What's the benefit to the kids for 1 day of distance learning?
What's the benefit?
Yeah.
They're connected to their teacher.
Well, they're not all connected to the teacher, because I've got a kid in distance learning, and I can tell you that when it goes to distance learning, half of his teachers that he has don't do anything. And I'm telling you,
If that's the case, then Sean Beard and I both we all need to know that.
I'm telling you, that's what happens.
You're expected to be at work, the teachers are gonna be on campus. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, Sean, but I mean, the expectation is not that they're doing nothing.
Yeah, the expectation is that they're either providing some live instruction or recorded instruction along with, some level of engagement throughout the day. But I will say the benefit of conducting the vaccine this way, rather than trying to keep the kids in the building while it's going on, is again, going back to what Ms. Arnold said, it also maintains the privacy of the individual getting their vaccine, but it also reduces the distraction and the impact on the classroom if they're face to face, because trying to manage that many teachers, like alone at the high school, for instance, going through the process from start to finish, even though the shot only takes a few minutes to administer and then they watch them 15 minutes afterward, from start to finish with the paperwork and everything, it could take up to an hour for a teacher to be gone from their classroom. In which case you have to find a substitute for that teacher while they're gone to have the vaccine administered. So managing that level of disruption while trying to maintain privacy of the individual getting the vaccine is kind of difficult. So I think more than anything, one of the benefits is that students get less distraction from the classroom.
Can we get some help from Berry Hill with Keystone for that 40 employees that have to work out? And they're gonna,
I can ask, I didn't go there just because it's our building,
Sure.
our machines, our computers, it's Charles Page High School. I mean, we know the building better. I'm sure they wouldn't care to offer. But logistically, trying to train people, hey, so you have to go down this hallway to the bistro, wrap around to the camp, it was just easier for us to engage. We're using mostly paraprofessionals, some site secretaries to manage, trying really hard to match, who, what, when, where with skills. Yeah, Kristen's laughing because she got to be the host, in charge of the hosts, which makes sense to me, but anyway. Any questions?
I would assume too that the vaccine would be available to board members if we decide to get it.
Board members, yes, and I know yes, they are.
Good.
I think that concludes, unless you guys have other questions.
You don't? Consent agenda?
Consent agenda, so I will bring your attention to item number 13. This is a payroll claim for Sean Beard. And he delivered project lead the way training in January and was left off the agenda. So you saw an item for that last month, but it was minus Sean Beard. So we're adding that to the agenda tonight. He actually provided the training as a presenter. Number 17, I don't typically highlight, but I will say this: we have a resignation for the school psychologist, and that's going to be tough to replace. Sadie is really amazing. She's going to follow her husband around, what is he doing? Diving
part of the year, they're gonna move to a different country and he is gonna be a master diver. And they're moving their family there with their dogs and they're gonna move there and he's going to run a business out of the country for diving.
I bring that to your attention.
She doesn't want to leave.
She doesn't want to leave, and I think she'd be willing to do some part-time work, but I will say this, finding replacements for school psychologists is a trick. So I'm publicly saying, hey, we have a school psychologist position open. And we're looking for a good candidate. So that's gonna hurt. The item number 20 is the audit contract for Bledsoe Hewitt Gulkson. This isn't new. It's just something I want to bring to your attention. It's one thing we do. It's a thing we do once a year. And then 22, this is also something we do once a year, but renewal license agreement for evaluation systems, a TLE, for support employees as well, recommended by Ms. Arnold. And of course, I didn't circle 23, but 23 is just our municipal accounting system. It's our Wingate system for all of our finance that we use for the finance department. So those are some things that you might want to be aware of.
Just one question about 20, the contract with our auditing firm. One of the exceptions they took was that coming to us and giving us the report.
Correct.
They've always done that, but they took an exception to it. I would assume that probably that exception has been there every year, so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
They'll still be here to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to point out with, as many vehicles and drivers and that as we have going with no accidents, I think is always commendable. So I just want to say thanks to those drivers and
Absolutely.
transportation department.
We met with them this morning, as a matter of fact, Rusty, and that is an amazing group of people. We need to remember the effort to get kids to school is a big deal. And they just keep working. We met with them this morning to basically announce who we were gonna recommend for the board for the director tonight. There's an assistant director position open. As you know, we lost Tara McDonald as well. I'm just setting their mind at ease. They're gonna love Ms. Hayes, I believe. But, you know, they work really hard and they're up earlier than most of us are. Doing the routes in cold, rain, snow sometimes. So it's a big job and definitely don't want to underestimate their importance for sure. So thank you for bringing that up for us.
Any questions? More questions?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
And I'll second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any questions? A vote, please.
Ben,
Aye.
Mullen,
Aye.
Hubble,
Aye.
Wagner. Aye. I didn't hear you. Wagers.
Aye. Okay, action items. Number 24, proposed executive session for employment. No proposed. Okay, number 25, proposed employment. Do we have to vote on 24? I'm so sorry.
No, you can.
Number 25, proposed employment.
I make a motion that we approve item number 25 with the listed employees.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion? A vote, please.
Ben,
Aye.
Mullen,
Aye.
Noggle,
Aye.
Wagner. Aye. Wagers.
Aye. Okay, number 26.
The one policy that I just want to point out publicly, the rest of them in terms of Title I, RSA mid-year promotion bullying, those are all regulatory changes that are required by law. The family medical leave, we talked about that last year in regard to changing, the biggest change is the rolling year versus fiscal year or calendar year, which means that family medical leave is triggered on the day the employee takes the leave. And so it would be trigger a year later that they would be able to take that leave again, which would keep us from having by fiscal year, an employee taking 12 weeks in the spring semester and then turning around, taking 12 more weeks in the fall semester, creating a pretty big disruption in learning. Most districts have this policy as it's written, as we're asking you to approve tonight.
And the attorneys have seen that one.
Yes, yes.
Make a motion, we approve item number 26 with the listed policies.
One second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any more discussion? Vote, please.
Jen,
All right,
Mullen,
Aye.
Novel,
Uh,
Wagner, aye, Winters.
Aye. Okay, view of business, any announcements?
No, ma'am.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
second.
Vote, please.
Aye.
Mullen,
Aye.
Novel,
Aye.
Wagner, aye, Winters.
Aye. All right. Thanks, guys.